Okay, ding ding. Recording is live. So welcome everybody to the July 11th Custodian Community Meeting. I'm going to get the notes shared here in the chat. And if anyone has any introductions to go, I think we've got a pretty familiar cast of characters here. Anyone wants to say hi on camera, go for it, or on in the recording, not on camera. Let me zoom in a bit, by the way. Okay, as far as agenda items, normal intro stuff, notes on 3.7. We did have a couple issues come through on S3 buckets. We don't need to go into them in detail on this call, but one of them is Jerry, is the issue that you, the pull request that you have open for a bucket replication filter. And I think I owe Jerry a bit more detail around the suggestions here. But it looks like in this pull request, we're using get bucket replication to fetch the replication details per bucket. And as part of the core set of augments that S3 performs by default, we already pull in replication information. So we should be able to reuse some of that. And then since a lot of the functionality that filter is trying to add is around determining same versus cross-region replication, we do need to find the region of the destination bucket. And for that, the easiest way from the AWS API side is to use a get bucket location call. But I know we've had some issues assuming that we'll have that access in the past. And so I'm linking in the notes this other, it's just an example of hitting that issue. It was specific to GovCloud, but but when we had some issues with determining regions for output buckets, we used an inspect bucket region utility function that uses HTTP head requests rather than the AWS API calls to figure out a bucket region. And we should be able to do that and save on some API call volume and also avoid needing certain permissions. We should be able to use those HTTP head requests and that utility function to find out a destination bucket region. And that hopefully will make things a little bit, it'll avoid some holes we can fall in, and it should make things a little bit friendlier. But I think Jerry had a good point. My comment on the pull request, I think I just kind of hand waved past using that inspect bucket region function. So I need to add in an example of actually using it. That may be a bit in the weeds, but hopefully, Jerry, that's of use, and I'll give you a better comment. Does anybody have any S3 region questions, comments, concerns?
Quick question. So the open that PR, please. 86.
Sure.
Yeah, go down to you mentioned inspect. Oh, okay. So your suggestion is use the client to call another API to get the S3 bucket, the endpoint, and then we inject the endpoint into this function to get the region. That's usually basically.
Yeah, okay. I think the piece. So I did link to this inspect bucket region, but your point here is that we need, when we call this function, we need to have an endpoint. And the reason for needing an endpoint there is because we want to be able to, we need to make an HTTP head request somewhere, and that's going to be whichever S3 endpoint we're targeting, which might be, it might be just like s3.amazonaws.com if you're in a US region, or if you're in GovCloud, it might be something else. And so we want to make sure we're targeting the right partition. And we can grab that endpoint from the execution context. So I can get a, I'll just add like a comment in here, how we can get to that from the filter context, how we can get back to figure out the endpoint.
Okay, great. Appreciate that.
Yeah. No, but thanks for calling that out. It's a good point.
Okay. And can you look at the first comment you add? So you were saying the annotation key, we could use location rather than B7 and bucket replication.
Yeah.
a little bit more allocation key? Maybe I'm missing the point for the allocation key.
No, sure. That's a good question too. So when you write any policy against the S3 resource, it's going to call this assemble bucket function.
Yeah.
Which goes through this whole augment table, and it does a bunch of things. So it'll call get bucket location and store the results in a location key. It'll call get bucket tagging and store the results in a tag key for every resource.
Okay.
So if we're looking at location information, then we should already have that information in the location key on a resource, because it would have tried calling get bucket location when we targeted the bucket. So that's on the source bucket, I guess. We would already have that.
Bucket, that's correct.
So we have that information, and then you had in that PR, there was a spot in there where it said, if that annotation isn't present, then we need to make this get bucket location call. So I was saying, well, if we use location as that annotation key, then it'll look there and it'll already see the detail that it got from the beginning, and so it won't need to call get bucket location again, or get bucket replication again.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
So I was saying, we could do that. It's kind of cheating, but it assumes that information is going to just be there in location. So I don't know. I was thinking we might try. I mean, maybe it would be smoother. And if other folks on the call have opinions on this, alternatives are welcome. We could either just use location here and then lean on the information that we got from that initial assemble bucket stuff. Or we could try to, if there's something in location, we could copy it to C7 on bucket replication. And then if it's not there, we could try fetching it again. I think if it's not there and we try fetching it again, we're probably going to run into whatever issue it hit during the initial fetch anyway. Oh, you know what? I'm realizing I called it location, but what I meant was this. Get bucket replication. Because we were talking about location and replication configuration. I was referencing one and calling it the other. But we do pick this information up when we put a bucket together, just because the default, like for most resources, if you call describe instances or something for EC2, you get back a bunch of useful information. If you call list buckets for S3, all you really get's a bucket name. You've got to make extra API calls to get anything useful. So that's why, from the custodian perspective, S3 is a little bit weird, and you have to do all this junk to get a usable resource. And I know we've had some back and forth over how many of these augments we should have in by default. But right now we do a bunch, which is why S3 policies are kind of slower to execute also, because it has to do all this stuff.
AJ, can I ask an off-the-wall question?
Yeah, sure, love it.
So we often get these requests like, hey, can you ensure that people are only attaching buckets that we own that are in our account list? I don't know of a way to do that, because if all I have is the name of a bucket, I cannot get the account list, right? I can't get the owning account.
Yeah, that is tricky. You kind of end up having to cross-reference stuff. Like, so you either need to have
pull a
S3
list
policies.
and,
yeah, you pull a list across all your accounts and then aggregate it somewhere and then reference that. Like you build kind of an asset inventory with custodian output. But you're right, because otherwise there's no way to get from just a bucket name back to an owner.
Yeah, that would be an awesome attack method, but I don't think that's what we want. Okay.
Yeah,
I keep pushing back and saying that's not a realistic approach for us, but I don't like the idea of let's get a list of things static and then pretend like it's going to be correct when we look at the second time. All right.
yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It's tricky. Sure. No, it's a good question. I think that kind of question has come up before, and I think Jerry's. I think that this PR in general is trying to find some amount of information. So Jerry, when you write a filter like this public bucket replication filter, you're looking for same or cross region, and then are you expecting to do some kind of validation on the destination buckets out of band, like just find out all the places that we're replicating to, and then reference an approved list or something, or look into something after the policy runs?
We're just looking for. We're really just looking for the replication rule. Make sure it's cross region.
Okay. You're just looking for cross region. Okay.
Yeah, and actually, this issue was created by another user, and he's saying, "Oh, can we add functionality to the cross region?" It
okay.
was back in January, and I just picked up that issue, and it happened to be the same thing as like our requirement. And so I added this. Then I think, okay, maybe I should do cross region and I expand to the same region as well. Add to the filter. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, hey, thanks for jumping on it. If anybody else, because I always feel hesitant to say no. If you have a bucket name, you can't figure out the owner, because I feel like there's always some weird way, whether it's an official way or whether it's some weird back channel way. Since we're on a recording, does anyone know of a way to do that? To just take a bucket name and figure out who the owner is? That's not super shady.
I would assume not, due to the, I mean, typically people tend to treat the account number as semi-private. I think AWS does that as well. So I would be surprised if there's a way, but I'm not 100% confident in that either. Like, I'm sure somebody's got some way to do it.
Yeah, that's where I always land too. It's like, you want to say, well, no, there's no way to do this, and then someone says, well, actually, they just released this thing, you can do it. So okay, so as far as we know, there's not a way to do that still, and that seems by design and safer.
So AJ, just clarify your comment. When in your comment you mentioned to use location rather than bucket replication. Do you mean to use actual replication? If you go back,
yeah, I mean replication. I'm talking through it. I'm like, yeah, I totally typed these two should be replication. I'll edit that because you're right, and that's making a comment more confusing than it needs to be. But yes, replication, not location.
Okay. All right. Once you add some detail, I'll make changes. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else? Any questions or concerns around this one, S3 stuff? All right. Well, yeah, thanks for that one. And that just happened to tie into some other issues that had come up before. I don't know. Does anyone else have issues or PRs that you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, I was hoping to plug one PR, and that's for AWS Connect campaigns. We're just compromise on it. Yeah, nothing like super urgent, but
sure.
Yeah, and also thanks a lot for pushing through that.
Did we lose me or did we lose Ryan? I think we lost Ryan. Okay. I'm seeing Darren blinking, which seems okay. Good. So I'm still here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we lost him.
Okay.
Image frozen.
Yeah. Okay, so we're looking at more stuff here. I'm okay to take a look at this. I haven't used Connect much, but yeah, but this looks okay. Anybody else happen to be familiar with Connect campaigns? That looks fine to me. I think we may have sort of gotten Ryan back. Okay. Yeah, I think so.
Am I back? Okay, sweet. So yeah, I think it's pretty simple. There's a KMS filter, I think, which is, kind of the non-standard thing. But yeah, that KMS related key thing, it wasn't in the original like describe call, so that's why it's done differently.
Okay.
KMS related filter, yeah.
So that's so we have to get connect instance config. Okay, and we're not. Oh, so we use. Oh, we're using instance config for both of these filters then.
Yes.
Okay. Is instance config something that you would expect to have all the time? Wondering if it'd be like worth putting in as a detail spec or something so that we always pulled it, or if it's worth keeping at the.
That I'm not sure. I'm not super familiar with this. It was worked on. I'm trying to push this on behalf of kind of a colleague. I didn't write this PR.
Gotcha.
But I can take a look.
Yeah, I'll look at that a little bit more. So yeah, I'm just thinking we've got two filters and both of them have the same pattern here for pulling the same detail. We might want to pull it up, but if we don't always need it, then we might not. That's fine. Okay, but yeah, happy to. Oh yeah, that was Peter. Cool. Yeah, that looks good though.
But yeah, and also thanks a lot for 2 weeks ago pushing through the SESPR. That's really helpful.
Oh yeah. Thanks for thanks for writing it.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. All right. Yeah. Thanks for the highlight on that one. Any other ones? Any other issues, PRs? Or other discussions not related to a specific issue or PR? That's fine too. Custodian in general.
Hey, I want to bring up the question that I raised in the chat room about release cadence.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think we previously discussed we try to meet the cadence, like monthly release cadence, and was that like second week? I remember it was like week of the meeting like we have, right?
Yeah. We still don't have automated releases that fire on a specific date. I think there was just a loose we'll look for a monthly release. We'll aim around the second week. I know the past couple, it was slipping a bit later, and I think that's just a thing that's going to happen. I think once the release is automated and set on a schedule, then we can make it a little bit more predictable. Right now, it's just roughly monthly. And then we have these things every couple of weeks to just kind of highlight any issues that are coming up.
Right.
Is there a specific change you're waiting for, or you're just curious
no,
about the schedule of it?
We have we try to schedule our upgrade, our internal upgrade, align with your release cycle. It's just the last two cycle was really off, and we couldn't really do on schedule. So that means the second week, I guess it was supposed to be last week or this week for this month.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we just had one, but maybe let's see, when was the last one? Okay, so we're 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago on the latest release. So yeah, I would not expect a release this week. I don't know when the next one would go out. I mean, we might just go till August and try to get back on that second week, but I don't know that a specific week is going to be reliable for setting up your own maintenance, though. I don't think we're at that point where we want to have people set up schedules banking on that.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I know that's an unsatisfying answer, but that's just how it is right now.
Yeah, it's just because in the last release was delayed because and such, but we still try to meet the regular release cadence in July, even it's only 2 weeks apart, or because it was just 2 weeks ago, let's skip this month. So this is not something like we cannot really predict, right? So I mean, if we don't have the release this month, we are totally fine. And just ongoing. What do we expect? Like what do customers?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I don't know if because we had one a couple weeks ago, we'll do one at the end of July and to keep that so it's roughly a month apart, or if we'll just say, well, we don't have critical changes coming out. Let's push it till August and get back on the second week. That's a fair question, and I don't have an answer. But I talked to Kapil a little bit before this got started, just about if anybody has anything pressing to bring up, just take it back and check in with him. And I think release schedule is worth talking through. Maybe we'll just comment in that thread that you already opened, and then if there are any updates, you'll see them there in Slack.
Okay. So in terms of the second week, I always have a problem counting, like, is this a second week or third week? Technically, the week started like Saturday or Sunday this month, and anything. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe better expect like the first week of the meeting. So I mean, in that case, is in August we have a meeting scheduled in Tuesday, August 8th. So like release will be 8th or 9th, the week of the meeting, something like that. It's easier to kind of remember.
Yeah. Well, and if we were going to set up something with an automated release on a regular schedule, I would think we'd do something like, well, the 10th of the month or something, is something where it was a lot easier to sync up with. I mean, Sunny, you may have thoughts on this. I don't know if you have anything you'd want to add there.
Yeah, I think maybe the first non-community meeting week of the month is probably best. I mean, we usually don't run, because I mean, if we're talking like we want to release like second Tuesday of the week or something, or sorry, second Tuesday of the month. It is, I mean, like I said, it can be a little bit ambiguous, I suppose, but we all know when the community meeting is. So first Tuesday without a community meeting of the month, I think probably sounds, I mean, I don't think it'd be too frequent. It would still be once a month. It just may land on the first week or the second week here and there. But I mean, personally, like in terms of doing the release process, I think it at least lets, like, I would rather do that than land it on a community meeting week, because it ideally the week before, everybody that had PRs that they had whatever suggestions or needed to get in should get in, and then we'll cut the release. And also, like, just in terms of timing, like if we don't have the community meeting, then maintainers are able to push the release out, even though it's not as tedious as it was before. It's still a thing we have to do. So
that's a fair point about doing it in between, so we have time. If there's if there was a recent release, we can raise issues, or if there's a release upcoming, we can get some of those last minute concerns in. Yeah, that's smart.
So first Tuesday.
I wonder if
Yeah.
I wonder if it's to help Nahito here with the planning, if it makes sense to have some sort of it might not matter if it's on the date, but maybe it's giving a heads up on, hey, this month we plan to have a release. Let's just say it's gonna be on this date, right? That way, people who need to plan for it, they can plan for it, and then of course, if update need to happen, if we need to delay the release, then we can update it and communicate it somehow. I think the main thing here is now he's just trying to see, just like, hey, for this given month, is there a planned release?
Would it be sufficient to say there will be a release before the 15th of the month? Like, the release will always happen in the first half. So in terms of planning,
I think so. Nahito, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, better than we never know. Yeah, first half of the month. But your kind of suggestion that the first Tuesday of the non-community meeting week is not gonna be the case. And if that's the case, August will be August 1st is the first Tuesday of the non-community meeting week. But we don't want to make a commitment like that. I mean, it's not never be a commitment, but just expectation.
Not sure I understand your statement.
So the let's say like the commitment will be the first half of the month, every month, if possible.
I think that's what Sunny is suggesting. And what I'm saying is, I think it's just a matter of communicating it too, because let's say that's what we're aiming for, but then let's say we just can't do it, and I think it's just to say, okay, this month we don't have a release, because my understanding now Hito is, hey, if there's no release, there's nothing for you to do on your side, right? There's nothing to update. It's just a matter of planning, and if you know ahead of time that okay, there's no release, okay, then there's no release.
Yeah, if it's always the first half of the month, I mean, no matter what, right? Like even for the August, for example, even we have a release in July 31st. We still have another release within 2 weeks because that's kind of the commitment. That works. We will just schedule our internal upgrade for the second half of the month every month. So yeah, that works.
That seems reasonable. I mean, yeah, if we have a release in the second half of the month, then it's effectively the first half of next month. So you could just, it'll fit into your next cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I will communicate it to our internal team. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I'm just looking through the other issues here. If there's anything that's worth talking through here. I did say, so Kent's not on, but I know he's been adding some, he's been looking to add some mailer destinations between Jira and the MS Graph API. I know there was some back and forth on that stuff. It's probably not worth going into in too much detail, but just calling it out. Mailer support, getting some attention to mailer is kind of neat when it happens. Any others? Any other discussions? Well, then we can let you all have the rest of your day. Thanks for joining. I'll post the notes, post the recording, and we'll see you all in Slack. Take care.
Thanks,
Thanks everybody.